Fuck, nigga. Hold, let me breathe. God damn, I need some oxygen.
What's up, guys? Hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. It's Viddy in the City here, and we're back again with another great video. This is going to be another 5 minutes of photography. I hope you guys liked and enjoyed the last video about directors of photography and kind of like what they do and how they impact the set or content that's being produced. Today we're going to be talking about camera basics and basically the exposure triangle and how each one affects a picture, a shot, or a video. So if you don't know the exposure triangle, we're talking about the 3 things that every photographer uses and needs to at least be acclimated with before they go out to shoot. So if you're still using the automatic setting on your camera, it's perfectly fine. But in layman's terms, exposure triangle consists of 3 key components in every shot. You have the shutter speed, you have the aperture, and you have ISO. We'll go and break down shutter speed first. Shutter speed basically is the measure of time that you allow light to hit your sensor in your camera. Other times you'll see a lot of shutter speeds measured in fractions of a second. So it goes from either a high shutter speed like 1/3000 to a longer, slower shutter speed to 1 second. So some cameras even do 30 seconds to 60 seconds. I kind of think of it as if, like, if you think about your camera, in every single camera there's a sensor, right? That separates the camera body and the lens. So what your sensor does with the shutter speed, every time you open your shutter, you take a picture, the shutter speed opens and closes, right? So when your shutter speed opens, let's say your shutter speeds are like 1/250 or 1/100, it opens up for that fraction of a second and then closes. In that fraction of a second, light will pass through your camera sensor and capture the shot, right? Okay. That's all shutter speed is. Shutter speed is the length of time. Goddamn. Shutter speed is simply the length of time that you allow light to hit your sensor in your camera. What that does is it gives an artistic as well as more like technical aspect to each picture or shot that you're taking. If you use a high shutter speed, we're talking maybe like from 1/250 to 1/3000. What you're looking for is you're trying to capture action, right? A lot of times you'll see this in sports photography. You'll see this in some nature photography. I'll even put some pictures up that show some high shutter speed shots, right? If you're trying to capture, let's say, a bird flying in the air and you want to freeze that motion, you know what I'm saying? And not capture the motion, but just freeze that action of the bird flapping. You'd have to use a high shutter speed for that. If you wanted to capture, let's say, like in action or sports photography, a tackle happening or a ball hitting a net, you want to capture that ball as soon as it passes over the line, you know what I'm saying, into the goal. All you need to really understand is that if you want to crank your shutter speed up, you're trying to capture a freeze action. It also helps with exposing your shot. So if your shot's a little too dark, a lot of times people will tap into their shutter speed first and either crank it up or down. The higher you bring your shutter speed up, the less light you're allowing in, right? That makes sense because if you think about it, the faster your shutter speed is, the less time light has to hit your sensor, right? So just think of it as like, okay, if it's really dark in the area or if it's really bright in the area, you don't want your shot overexposed, you crank that shutter speed up. Also, use your shutter speed to freeze action. If you're going, let's say, like if you're shooting like in a darker area, right, and you need more light. So what you want to do is you want to open your shutter speed so more light can enter into your sensor. What you want to do is you want to use longer or slower shutter speed times. So we're talking about times below probably like 100, 1/60, 1 second, 273 seconds. A lot of times these longer shutter speeds are used to capture nighttime photography. A lot of times photographers use those for light trails. Lately in my own photography, I've used longer shutter speed time, maybe around like 1 second to 0.8 seconds. I use it to capture motion, right? So longer shutter speed times capture motion in shot. So let's say if I'm moving my hand like this and I were to take a shot at like 1 second, you would literally see the motion of my hand going this way. In contrast to, let's say, if you're using a high shutter speed, you probably catch the camera right here, catch the shot right here, catch the shot right here. So the whole capturing the motion is the artistic way you can use long shutter speeds. However, if you wanted to just like put some more exposure into your shot, you'd also crank down your shutter speed. Now the thing with that is, a lot of times when you're using a slower shutter speed, you may want to be on a tripod because like if you are taking a shot with a slow shutter speed, the light's passing through your shot, and you're holding your camera, a lot of times if you're not on a tripod, your camera will shake. And let's say if you're trying to get a clear shot. So let's say if you're taking a shot of the night sky, you don't want to be using it, holding it in your hand if you have it over a second, because it won't be clear. You won't see all the stars in the sky. It'll be shaky and blurry. Put that bitch on a tripod and you're good to go. Like I said, the main thing about shutter speed that you want to understand is it controls exposure as well as controls the time that the shutter is open, allowing light to hit the sensor. It's very simple. If you're capturing action shots, if you're trying to capture freeze motion, if you're trying to freeze motion, crank that shutter speed up. You know, if you're trying to capture motion, there's difference. You're trying to freeze it, you're trying to capture. If you're trying to capture motion, bring that shutter speed down. If you're trying to expose your image a little more, bring that shutter speed down. If you're shooting at night, bring that shutter speed down. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Next we have aperture. So aperture, a lot of people get a little bit confused about. I feel like it's the most confusing because of the way the terminology is set, and I'll break it down as simple as I can, the way I understand it. Aperture really controls the depth of field, right? So what's in focus and what's not in focus. Aperture also controls the things that is going to be the details in your image, right? So let's say if I wanted to take a picture of a flower, aperture being a instrument that controls the depth of field, the lower you go in your aperture, the shallower depth of field you have, right? So let's say like you're in a beach, right? The closer you are to the shore, the shallower it is. So the things that are close up are going to be in focus, right? But if you crank up your aperture, let's say it's the f-stop of 5 or 6 or 8 or 10, the things that are further away are going to be in focus. That's literally the simple way I understand it. The lower your f-stop, if we're in a beach, the lower your f-stop means the things that are closer, you're going to have a shallower depth of field. Things that are closer are going to be in focus. If you crank up your f-stop, you want more depth of field. So you're going to be going farther out into the ocean, so farther out things are going to be in focus. Just to run down again with aperture, I just think of it like if I'm at a beach shore and I go closer, the closer I am to the shore, right, that's more shallower, right? So you got a shallow depth of field. Things that are closer are going to be in focus. If you go high and crank up the aperture to f22, f10, sometimes some cameras go up to f30, the more shit that farther away is going to be in focus, right? You're going to get more depth of field between again. So aperture, understand it as aperture is basically the control the depth of field, right? So when it's going to be in focus, what's going to be out of focus. Finally, we have ISO. And basically with ISO, controls the sensors in your camera's sensitivity to light in the environment. That's all it is. Cranking your ISO up, you're allowing your camera's sensor to be more sensitive to the light in the environment. So that's going to make your image more exposed, right? ISO, you kind of want to fiddle with that last, because if you crank up your ISO too much, you're going to get a lot more grainy footage. Yes, your sensor is going to be able to be more sensitive, but also it's going to be putting in a lot more work, right? Your camera puts in more work because of the fact that, okay, I'm cranking my ISO up, making it more sensitive, so I have to work a little harder to capture the light in the environment. So that's what produces the grain. Now, if you're like in like a sunset day, I recommend just putting your ISO will be like 100, 200, you know, and just fiddling with the aperture and shutter speed. Like I said, shutter speed will control your exposure for you. So you crank that up, it's like 1 to 400, 1 to 250, maybe into the thousands. But ISO is really what I think about it is, it's how sensitive is my sensor to light in the environment. If I'm shooting in a dark setting, I want that shit probably high as like 4,000, 5,000. In certain cameras, you'll start to see the grain around 6,000, 8,000 if it goes that high. But usually over 800 on certain cameras, if it's not like a newer model, once you hit around 800, like on my A6000, once I was around 800 ISO range, that definitely is when grain started appearing. So with the higher model cameras, you can crank up the ISO a little higher and not have to worry about grain. That's really all ISO is. If you're in a low lit setting, crank that bitch up. If you're in a daylight, natural light setting, crank that bitch down. You know, the way I like to go about it, I try to get it as low as possible. If I'm out in the daylight, I want my ISO as low as possible. But if I'm in the night, or if I'm in a low lit editing, like last last night I took some pictures, and I have my ISO around like 8,000, 10,000, just because there was just no real light source out there. You know what I'm saying? Like bars, clubs, nightclubs. Sometimes I be shooting with artists, so I'm in studio settings. If I don't have like my flash on me, or if I'm just counting on the light in the environment, I have to crank my ISO up. But other than that, keep your ISO low. It produces a lot more quality image, and you don't have to worry about grain. You can, if you are dealing with a grainy image, you can edit that in post and get some of the grain out. But really, a lot of times, you want to make sure that you capture what you want out of the shot during the shot. You don't want to have to like go back and edit and deal with the tediousness of editing a photo to how you would have wanted if you just took the extra time to understand your camera and understand the exposure triangle. So it's probably been a little bit over 5 minutes, but again, I'm just going to break down again the basics of what I just said. Yeah, exposure triangle is the key things that you do want to understand and learn if you're trying to like take your photography to that next level. Aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. Shutter speed simply controls the amount of time of the image and the amount of time that light hits the sensor in your camera. The higher shutter speed, you want to freeze action. The lower shutter speed, you're trying to capture the motion. Aperture, simply the depth of field. Think of it like this: if I'm out by the shore in the ocean, and I want to capture what's in front of me. Think about it. You take when you're close to the shore, it's a lot more shallower. So think of it like that. I'm gonna bring down my aperture. Everything that's in front of me is gonna be closer because it's shallower depth of field. If I want to take pictures and see and make more of my subject in the background, if I want to like capture from taking the picture right in the city, and I want to capture the buildings as well as my model, you know, I want to crank my shutter speed up, so I want to get more depth of field. The things that are farther out in the city, I want to focus. Things I want closer to me in focus, shallow depth of field, lower f-stop. Things that are farther out in the ocean, higher depth of field, higher f-stop. ISO is simply the sensor sensitivity to light in the area. So if I'm out in the day and have plenty of sunlight, there's no reason why my ISO needs to be at like 4, 5, 6, 800, 1,000. Bring that bitch down to 100, 200. If you are inside in a nightclub, if you're in a party and there's not a lot of ample light, if you're at in the studio taking pictures with your artist, crank that shutter speed up though, you know. Like I said, most cameras are around 800 to 1,000. You can start seeing a little bit of grain, but on updated models, a lot of models now, if you're hitting like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, like I said, you're not even gonna see no grain at all. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. Remember that if I didn't explain anything thoroughly or well enough, I'm still learning. It's like the second video of the series. Please leave a comment down below. If I did help, if I did make it easier, let me know. If there's things that I can do to make these videos better, or if there's any topics that you really want to understand as well, leave them on in the comment section. I really want to make this portion of the channel really like educational and just kind of like create a space where when I was starting as a photographer, there weren't a lot of I'll just be honest, there weren't a lot of black photographers. Like there weren't a lot of black photographers, videographers really like putting out the videos like this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and not to say that's like my main, that's like it's not bad or anything, it's just like niggas wasn't doing that shit. So now I'm at a point where like I'm learning more and more. I'm more adept in my photography and getting more into videography. Everything that I learn, I'll put out on here. Everything that you guys would like me to learn, I'll put out on here as well. But I think we're gonna end it like that. This is well over 5 minutes. I'm sorry about that, guys. But as always, more life, more love. Go out there and create some shit. Get this shit. Go crazy. Bidding the CD out.
Shit's be so crazy, bro, when you try to like follow your dreams, bro. I swear, shit be so crazy, bro. Anytime you're in the mirror, bro, every day, bro, this is what you gotta do, bro. Every day you go look yourself in the mirror, you take off your glasses, you look in the mirror and be like, look, I ain't shit yet.